I'm choking him up. Shut up! No.
Setting out on an exciting adventure filled with regret and fear, a daring escape is the only way to avoid justice's grasp and incarceration when the consequences of a careless decision are hanging over one's head. This is the story of 10 convicted felons who, during their sentencing in court, look for a way out. At the top of the list are Tanner Jacobson and Cody Howard.
We were sitting there on the benches together and he's like, I'm gonna run.
I said, what am I doing? What did I just do? I gotta go with it now. There's nothing, I can't stop right here. There's nothing I can do now. I'm screwed.
I only get like 4 blocks and then I stopped. Like I just stopped on my own. I'm like, what am I doing right now? It was just a split second like decision. I don't even know why I did it. Like I would be out of here if I wouldn't have ran.
Our journey begins in the courtroom of Judge R.W. Buzzard at the Lewis County Courthouse in Chehalis, Washington. Judge Buzzard has recently concluded a hearing involving the 4 defendants seated to the right. Tanner Jacobson is facing charges of reckless driving and driving with a suspended license. Cody Howard is facing charges of second-degree burglary, first-degree trafficking, and stolen property, third-degree driving with a suspended license, and 2 warrants for failing to appear in court. Because they were afraid to stay in detention and there didn't seem to be any deputies nearby, Howard and Jacobson pulled a fast one and fled. It looks like this onlooker is about to pursue the 2 men who just left the courtroom, but he's held back. Judge Buzzard quickly removes his robe and charges after them. So, as you know, the 2 men are wearing prison-issue sandals and handcuffs. Just 1 floor away from freedom, but Judge Buzzard is closing in on them all, especially the one who lost his sandal. Jacobson takes a glance around before bolting out the door. The judge tackles the defendant, who is falling behind just outside the building's exit. 2 deputies swiftly apprehend him and returned him to a cell, while the other defendants were caught just a few blocks away. Both of them faced charges of second-degree elopement. Howard received a little over 3 years in prison, while Jacobson received a year and a day. If you think Jacobson and Howard weren't lucky, then wait until you hear of our court escape. Here we are at the Fayette County Justice Center in Fayetteville, Georgia, where we find 24-year-old Ronald Neal appearing before Judge Fletcher Sams. Today, Neal is facing charges related to theft and fleeing officers. However, Neal's failure to appear yesterday created a major complication. As a result, Judge Sams issued a bench warrant for his arrest by ordering deputies to arrest Neal for failure to appear. However, Neal had escape plans. He runs into an adjacent courtroom, shocking onlookers, and smashes a door. He then manages to escape down a stairwell, heading toward the first floor. Later that day, deputies and police officers pursued him hotly and returned him to court, pleading guilty to his earlier crimes and his escape attempt, which involved damaging property and hurting cops. Judge Sams handed down additional charges and sentenced him to 5 years in prison. He is currently serving a 10-year term at Lee State Prison in Georgia. Neal's antics and smartness can't be compared to our next court escape case. Mario and Jose Guzman appear at the Jefferson Circuit Court, Louisville, Kentucky, awaiting pending trial for drug charges after being free on bond. Samantha Ayala, Mario's wife, sits behind the defense table. At the hearing, the prosecutors want an increase to Mario's bond due to new charges, which include second-degree burglary, tampering with evidence, and possession of marijuana.
In your order, it specifically says no further violations of the law. He picked up new charges. He violated the law.
The prosecution claims that these offenses violate his bond agreement.
They don't have the victim because he left town because he's a drug dealer.
The defense team argues that the proposed increase in Guzman's bond from $5,000 to $15,000 is excessively high, that the defendant doesn't have the financial means to pay such a large bond, and that the purpose of the bond is to ensure that someone appears in court. The judge, Mary Shawn, is prepared to announce her decision.
I agree. New charges obviously have been picked up. Current bond is not appropriate. It will be $5,000 full cash.
If Guzman fails to come up with the required amount, he will be incarcerated while awaiting trial. Guzman has other plans than the bailiff, who is prepared to remove him, so he dashes frantically for the door. Samantha Guzman, Jose's wife, can be heard screaming after the deputy uses his taser, and Jose implores the judge to intervene.
Father's justice, Mom! Mom! Father's justice, Mom, now! Mom! Father's justice now, Mom! Mom! Resist arrest! Sorry, ma'am. I'm choking him up.
Shut up!
Samantha was so distressed and screaming that the officers had to put her in handcuffs. The deputies managed to remove Guzman from the courtroom, though they sustained some minor bruises while trying to tame him. The judge then charges Guzman with an additional 3 counts of attempted assault and criminal mischief, and they increase his bond by another $2,500, bringing the total to $7,500. However shocking Mario's reaction appears to be, it can't be compared to that of Israel Pointer. Here at the Oklahoma County Courthouse is the hearing of a Israel Pointer on allegations of robbery with a firearm and possession of a firearm. 19-year-old Israel Pointer did not show up 3 days before this hearing. When he finally showed up, he maneuvered his way out of the court just before the judge could revoke his release. As Pointer stormed out of the courtroom, he blew past 2 deputy guards and slipped off one officer's grasp. There are 2 sheriff's deputies down the hall who have no idea that their shift is going to begin with the pursuit of a convict. Shortly after, in a cramped corridor, they collide with the evading defendant. However, he manages to break out once more. It appears that Pointer may have a chance to be free. That is, until he enters this corridor by mistake. And this man, David Prater, who is the chief prosecutor for the county, is about to cross paths with him as he tries to escape. There's no deputy in the area that Prater would have watched out for to help when he sees what's coming his way. He proceeds to unbutton his suit jacket and immediately begins to move. As an alternative to a full contact tackle, the lawyer grabs Pointer's arm. The attorney continues to hold on to Pointer's arm. With the other lawyer's assistance, Prater tries to hold him down with his arm's grasp. Upon his subsequent plea of guilty to resisting arrest, Israel Pointer was sentenced to 6 months in the county jail. He also admitted guilt to the initial charges of armed robbery and handgun possession, which resulted in a 3-year jail term. Though Israel was caught before launching out of the court premises, this wasn't the case for our next convict, Rashad Hawkins. Now at the Meigs County Courthouse is the sentencing of Rashad Hawkins, 33, of Decatur, Tennessee. He was sent to serve jail time for non-payment of child support. In a twinkle of an eye, before he can be arrested, he ducks out of the courtroom on the 2nd floor, passes the reception desk, and then heads for the door. The deputy follows at a sluggish pace since it appears there is nowhere to flee. Hawkins immediately jumps over the railing of the 2nd floor balcony, dangles precariously from it, and then lets go, landing on an unsuspecting potted plant below. Although he seems to be considering his options, the deputy is not planning to pursue Hawkins. Hawkins and the potted plant somehow return to their original positions. After that, Hawkins vanishes into thin air, his grip on the paperwork he's carrying remaining remarkably firm. From up there, the deputy and others are staring around in shock. Looking below, you can see a couple of individuals have popped their heads up to see the fuss. Hawkins remained a wanted man for the subsequent 20 days, more than 200 miles away, though his disappearance came to a halt when an officer responded to a trespassing complaint from neighbors who had seen a stranger in their backyards. Hawkins was finally taken into custody after a confrontation with an officer, but he attempted to flee once again, as stated in the police record. Criminal trespassing, resisting arrest, and third-degree assault on a police officer were among the numerous new accusations levied against Hawkins, who already had an outstanding warrant in Tennessee. Until his next court appearance, Hawkins remains jailed without bond. Hawkins' escape act is similar to that of our next offender, Raiiton Woodford. At the Jefferson County Circuit Court, Louisville, Kentucky, is Raiiton Woodford, a 29-year-old ex-convict who's having his revocation hearing. Authorities have charged him with violating probation for drug and firearm offenses. Just a few feet away, Woodford's fiancée sits. Judge Barry Willett's camera remains focused on the vacant witness chair as he delivers the decision following the detective's testimony.
That evening, he was charged with the handgun and narcotics.
And if you know, was Mr. Woodford at the time a convicted felon?
Yes, he was.
He faced charges of narcotics and firearm possession. After the sentencing, Woodford tried to escape, but was stopped. Woodford's fiancée was heard begging her boyfriend to stop trying to escape.
Probation revoked in its entirety. Mr. Woodford, I'm going to send you to serve 5 years. Good luck to you.
Please, no.
No, ma'am.
Deputies apprehended Mr. Woodford after he unsuccessfully attempted to flee, and he's currently serving terms behind bars. Raiiton's escape antics can't be compared to our next offender's audacity as he walked freely out of the courtroom before taking to his heel. Jason Cordero. Jason Cordero is here in the courtroom in Rochester Hills, Michigan. The judge just handed him a 90-day prison term for retail fraud and disorderly conduct. After handing down his punishment, the judge instructed him to sit down and wait. At this very moment, the deputy was entering the courtroom. Deciding that he does not want to be incarcerated, Jason leaves the courtroom. Just as Cordero pounces out the door and sprints full speed ahead, the deputy who entered the courtroom quickly follows suit, picking up her pace. Cordero successfully evades the deputy's pursuit, crossing the street and ultimately getting recaptured in a forested location 5 to 10 minutes later. Cordero is currently facing additional accusations, which include evading legal custody and obstructing and resisting a law enforcement official. Leonard Grazer. Here we have Leonard Grazer, a man in Moscow, Russia, facing murder charges. He claims that Satan commanded him to kill his 21-year-old sister, Iradia Korel, and stands accused of the savage murder at the age of 18. The story takes place in the confined Sherbinsky courthouse, where an unusual security measure, Grazer's appearance behind a glass cage, is noticeable. It becomes evident that Grazer plans to escape, and this measure is implemented to thwart potential attacks by dangerous criminals. Grazer sneaks past the supposedly impregnable security dock, leaving observers perplexed despite the initial quiet. In a shocking turn of events, an officer accidentally hits Grazer while trying to apprehend him. A female officer presses a big button on the wall to summon reinforcements after Grazer keeps trying to escape. Amid all the chaos, Grazer's pants start to fall, but a cop refuses to release his hold on his leg. The situation's level of severity changes as another cop arrives, and seeing the seriousness of the escape attempt, resorts to using a taser. After issuing a strong warning, the police subdue Grazer with a taser, effectively ending the daring escape. Soon after, Grazer puts his trousers back on and confesses to the murder in detail, showing no regret for his horrific deeds. Devil's incarnate, you may call him, but his reaction is more like our next convict, Gerald Hyde II. This is Gerald Hyde, whose arraignment has just been concluded and has been sentenced to jail by the judge in Benton County Court, Washington. He was found guilty of methamphetamine possession, but he re-entered the courtroom by stylishly sneaking past a security guard and took off his prison shirt, hiding his handcuffs in the process. He ran as fast as he could down the corridor before anybody realized he had gone missing. He takes a glance around before removing his signature orange jail sneakers and walking barefoot through the courtroom. As soon as he enters the lobby, he dashes out the front doors and directly onto the street. But the cops track him down at a friend's residence within the next 2 hours. Without further ado, the cops return him to their custody. You may think Gerald Hyde is smart with his escape, but wait till you hear of David Knight's antics. David Knight. Here in Oklahoma City, at the Oklahoma County Courthouse, we find ourselves at a hearing on narcotics possession charges. A 30-year-old man with a brown jacket named David Knight is about to enter the courtroom. Knight has no idea that there's a warrant out for his arrest. Knight slyly leaves the courthouse at the last possible second, slipping past the deputies as the elevator doors open. Upon reaching the ground floor, Knight quickly gets out of the elevator, takes a little while to get his bearings, and then dashes off in pursuit of freedom. Even though he had some success at the beginning, the hardest part is still to come: overcoming the last security checkpoint and overcoming a resolute deputy. Knight starts a mad dash for freedom as he dashes out the door and onto the street, the cop following closely behind, but the deputy, who is barely out of shot, wins the battle and tackles Knight to the ground in front of the curious onlookers. After being brought into prison, Knight now faces accusations of obstructing an officer. He enters a guilty plea and is sentenced to 1 year with the possibility of a suspension, meaning that he will not be sent to jail as long as he follows the terms of his probation.